The Swell Season podcast is recorded by the Newsstand Studio at Rockefeller Center in the heart of Manhattan and is distributed by the Swell Season Surf Radio Network. Hello, and welcome to the Swell Season Surf Radio podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Brewer. Filmmaker and cinematographer Derek Hoffmann was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. He and his brother Craig grew up in the famed shorebreak of Sandy Beach on Oahu's southeast side. It's here where he gained his appreciation of the ocean and cut his teeth in photography and cinematography. Derek got his first taste of having his footage on the big screen with the classic surf film Rolling Thunder by Scott Dietrich and realized what his life's work would be. He eventually went on to shoot with legendary surf filmmakers such as Chris Bystrom, Larry Hynd, and the great Sonny Miller. It's with Sonny that he went on to help make perhaps one of the most iconic series of surf films ever. Rip Curl's The Search films from 1992 to 1996 under Sonny Miller's direction and Derek Hynd's creative vision captured the zeitgeist and inspired surfers all over the world. It was the documentation of Tom Curren, perhaps one of the greatest surf stylists in history, at his peak in perfect waves that cemented these films in surf history and became a cult phenomenon. The films culminated with Searching for Tom Curren, a greatest hits of Tom on the Search. The movie would live on in surf lore for decades after. Derek Hoffmann's contributions to these films has earned him a place among surfing's greatest cinematographers. But he eventually went on to have a successful commercial career as well, shooting for everything from Hawaii 5-0 to Survivor to Lost. He eventually returned to surf filmmaking in 2010 with his brother Craig directing Fiberglass and Megapixels, a film that shed light on Hawaii's North Shore winter surfing scene and the photographers behind the lenses who captured it. In 2014, the legendary surf filmmaker and friend Sonny Miller had passed away. Sonny's father had entrusted Derek to help protect Sonny's archive and legacy. It's now 25 years since the release of Searching for Tom Curren, and Derek is re-releasing the film to the public and hosting screenings around the country. Derek is our guest, and it is a total honor to have him on Swell Season. Derek, welcome to the show.
Aloha, Tyler. Thank you very much. That was a really generous introduction. And to hear you say it, I was like, wow, I've been blessed with an amazing life. Still going strong. Super grateful to be able to communicate and talk to you. I'm in California at my office today. I know you're up in New York. And I appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, I'm so stoked. Did you need to correct anything in that intro there? Was there anything I missed?
The only thing I was going to say is actually my brother Craig worked on Lost. But everything you said was exactly right. So Craig worked on Lost. I actually didn't work on Lost. I kind of cut my chops in reality. So one of my first shows was a show called The Apprentice.
Oh,
which I worked with
yes.
Mr. Trump for 10 years. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying we need to put that in there because that could alienate me with people. But hey,
Hey, a
it was
job's a
it was a
job.
it was a yeah, it was a job, and I was working for Mark Burnett. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, Mark Burnett is kind of
But that
legendary.
Yeah, kind of. So, but anyway, that's the only thing. That was an excellent introduction. It's just didn't really work on Lost. That was Craig, but he did, so that's fine.
You got to work on your IMD there because that's what it had in your profile. It had Lost in there, so gotta
Oh wow, okay,
update.
I got to check on
Yeah.
that. I thought I'll
Well,
update.
maybe they're
Okay,
getting you and your
thank
brothers
you, though.
mixed
That
up.
was very nice.
So
You know how that goes. You're the handsome brother. I'm just kidding.
yeah, exactly. That's what I tell people. So, how have the screenings of Searching for Tom Curren been going, and when are we bringing it to NYC?
The screenings for Searching for Tom Curren have been going phenomenal. Obviously, we've been trying to get this out for years. As everyone's been challenged with the last few years, it's been hard to do any kind of live event.
Yeah.
My plan and goal was to be able to screen these movies in iconic theaters and locations. So we started in La Paloma at Encinitas, which is really Sonny's hometown. And
Mhm.
for any true surfer, especially one from California, that's the theater you want to screen at. So we were blessed to have a screening last month for 2 nights, 4 shows, packed house. Tom
Wow.
was there, a bunch of Surf Stoke fans. It was a really memorable evening. And part of Sonny's legacy always wanted to bring back surf cinema. Something as you may remember when we were younger, I mean, before YouTube and Instagram, we had to go to movie theaters or put in a VHS in our TV to watch films. So something we wanted to be able to do to honor Sonny was to have live screenings with a full house of Surf Stoke fans enjoying one of the best movies I believe ever made.
It must be hilarious watching 50-year-old men go all weak-kneed with Tom Curren there too in the movie, just acting like a teenage fan kid, you know? Because I know I did that.
That's one of the highlights for me personally. Whether it's a personal friend of mine that's maybe never met Tom or had a picture of Tom, that to me is one of the biggest joys I get. Obviously, I've known Tom for a long time. We've worked together and filmed a lot of great stuff. Being older now, looking back on this incredible journey that I've been on and being blessed to be on the search, to see the stoke, whether it's an 8-year-old kid or a 58-year-old grown adult, to meet their Tom Curren is brings a lot of joy to me because I see the faces, the smiles, and the stoke. The La Paloma Theater screening was excellent. Tom was out there taking pictures with people, signing posters. I mean, I have to say that was one of the more memorable nights in my life. And more importantly is, we had up on the marquee, Searching for Tom Curren, a film by Sonny Miller. So obviously, as you mentioned, Sonny's not with us anymore. It was my, I believe, duty and actually honor, and I feel grateful to be able to bring this movie back, remastered in high definition, for the world to see. Because Sonny created a masterpiece with this film. It was only released on VHS. And I just feel it was my duty as a surfer and a friend and a cinematographer who was fortunate enough to be a part of this incredible search series that this movie had to be remastered and put online or, into a Blu-ray for people to enjoy.
So let's talk about how this footage came into your possession. Because there's been, well, one, like just for full disclosure to our listeners, I was able to help host the original, one of the first screenings of the movie actually in 2012 for a Hurricane Sandy benefit. And I was able to interview Tom and Sonny, which was, I don't think it really gets much better than that. I mean, this is a great interview though, Derek. It's going to be up there, but like that was like kind of mind blowing. And and I remembered Sonny saying how complicated it was to try to get this movie released for so many reasons. First, I would love you to explain to our listeners how you got into the possession of the footage, and then what was the plan when you got that footage, and then what sort of hoops you had to go through to get this released.
Yeah, it's been a lot of hoops, a labor of love. Well, basically, it goes back to what you mentioned. Back in 2014, the summer of 2014, I got a call one morning. I was in another country working on a TV show. Got a call from my good friend Mike Prickett, and Mike said, "Hey, Derek, did you hear the news?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's terrible. Suzanne, Sonny's mother, passed away."
Mm.
He's like, "No, Sonny's gone." I'm like, "What? What do you mean Sonny's gone?" He's like, "Yeah, Sonny passed away last night. He had a heart attack." And I mean, that kind of floored me, obviously. That was 6 days after Sonny's mother passed away. It was 10 days before Sonny's 54th birthday. I mean, I talked to Sonny, just last week after his mom passed. So what happened is I was coming home from a job. I was going back home to Hawaii. I had a stopover in LA. I haven't seen my wife in a couple months. I talked to my wife. I'm like, "Hey, honey, I'm going to fly home. Then I'm going to come back and help out here." And she's all, "No, you shouldn't come home, Derek. You should go and help." So the next morning, I rented a car. I drove down to Sonny's house, talked to his uncle Bill Gilliland. And I basically showed up not really knowing what to expect other than I'm here to help. And it turns out when Sonny's father, Bud Miller, came into town a couple days later, they were planning a memorial service. He's seen the movie you mentioned, Fiberglass and Megapixels, which me and my brother Craig made, and that profiled Sonny Miller. And he's like, "Derek, I would love for you to be able to tell a story about my son one day." I was like, "Bud, I would be honored to tell the story about Sonny Miller. He was one of my best friends, one of the best guys to travel with. Brought me into some of the best opportunities of my life ever." And then what really came about is nobody knew what to do with this footage. I mean, here you're looking at thousands of film reels, thousands of Betacam tapes, tons and tons of slides. Sonny's artistic work. Sonny kept everything. He never let anything go. So here you have this compound, the Miller compound, with all this really important stuff that nobody really knew what to do with. So, long story short, Sonny's father, Bud, asked me if we could help protect Sonny's archive. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be an honor to do that. And with that being said, what we really did was just extract everything and put it into a climate control storage where it sat for many years. Because it's very hard after the passing of Sonny to start looking at the footage and hearing Sonny talk. I mean, it took me years to even start to look into any of that footage.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I got possession of the footage. Sonny's father basically entrusted me and some of my good friends to just save the footage. That was the first goal: save the footage. And then I remember the conversation I had with Sonny just the year before. He's like, "Hoffmann, I got to release Searching for Tom Curren on the digital." I go, "Yeah, you do, brother. That's one of the best films ever." And so Sonny was gone. And so it's like, who's going to do this? This has to be done. This is one of the most iconic surf films ever made. Sonny is a genius behind the lens in the editing. Obviously, Derek Hynd was a huge part of the creative process of not just the search films and getting all the locations for us, but also the actual film, Searching for Tom Curren. Sonny and Derek edited it. I mean, I was there at Sonny's house. I was working on another project when they were editing the film. I was like, it's amazing. So that's kind of how I got possession of the footage. And then a few years later, I think it was 2016, 2 years later, I was on the North Shore. I was doing another TV show on the North Shore at Turtle Bay, and all of a sudden, I see Doug Warbrick, who's the founder of Rip Curl, who was actually on the search for the Claw. Yeah,
The Claw.
love Claw. The Claw, yeah,
Legend.
I mean. Yeah, legend. I mean, look what he created, and I mean, he was out on this. Him and Brian Singer actually were out on that search trip when we scored Bawa that one year, which is phenomenal. I don't know of any. I mean, obviously they're surfers, but how many owners of companies do you know that are actually out there with the athletes? So they're
yelling. I mean, they were yelling at Tom not to take out the fireball fish, weren't they? I mean, like they were like, "Tom, what are you doing? You're gonna blow it."
Well,
At least that's what I
that's
heard.
another story we can get in. Yeah, well, actually, I think everyone was like, "Tom, what are you doing taking out a fish?" And he pretty much proved to everyone that he can ride anything and ride it gracefully and stylistic, and we all, dream to surf like Tom. So going back to that story real quickly, so I saw Claw and I told, "Hey, Claw, we got to release all these movies," and he just looked at me and goes, "Hoffman, I love your passion. Well, we're really a clothing company, but if you want to do any of that, we'd love to bless you on that." So that kind of resonated with me. I was a little seed that all I needed to get planted in my head to think of, well, all the films are very iconic. We'd like to re-release them all, but if I could pick one, what would be that film? And that was Searching for Tom Curren. So that kind of started the ball rolling, and here we are today, 2022, the 25th anniversary. Searching for Tom Curren is available to stream online, or you can have a collector's edition Blu-ray. I mean, just last year, it was only on VHS, and no one could watch the film. So
got mine right here. I'm holding it. I got my copy of the Blu-ray and DVD with the booklet. Oh my gosh. When I saw that, I was like, holy shit, I need to order this. Even though, to be fair, I have... So for some of our listeners, and a lot of people may not be aware, that Rip Curl had actually released a box set of the Search movies in the 2000s without Sonny's permission, which I think created like a bit of an issue and delay of re-releasing it because I think there was music rights issues and other things. And I know, so I had that actual copy. I still have it, but it's still like to have the official is pretty freaking amazing, and with the cover and everything, it's kind of with the Jeff Hornbaker photo there. It's just, yeah, it's special. I highly recommend all the listeners getting a copy. Best $50 you'll ever spend.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tyler. Yeah, and just to reiterate along that point, so Rip Curl blessed me with the go ahead, but financially, this is an independent production. I mean, I self-financed this film. I basically took a home equity loan out on my house to do this. Yes.
Oh my
because,
goodness.
it had to be done. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all in on this. It's like for me, I look at life. What is important in life? Well, those memories and experiences I had in the 90s, to be blessed to be on the Search, not just filming with Tom, Duma, Beshin, Frankie, all the boys, Hornbaker, Ted Grambeau. Oh, and just to clarify, actually, that's a Ted Grambeau image.
Grambeau.
I love
geez,
Jeffy, but that's a
my bad.
No, so I'm sorry about that. I should have, but yeah, but that's a Ted Grambeau image. So I just felt two things. A, Rip Curl wasn't in the position to re-release it. B, who's going to do this? Well, and why is it going to be done? Obviously, we want to watch Tom surfing. It's some of the best surfing in the world, and I believe all surfers around the world should be able to watch Tom surf in his prime and get that sense of understanding the importance of the historical aspect of our sport and the people that came before us. So that was a huge part of it for me, as well as honoring Sonny. So I'm all in on this. I'm committed to it. I'm grateful for your support, Tyler, and all the surfers around the world that want to stream the movie or help support us by buying the Blu-ray. But as you know, life is more than money. Life is about experiences, and in my personal opinion, being able to honor Sonny Miller and really fulfill one of my goals and obligations I thought to his father to perpetuate Sonny's legacy, it was something I had to do. So that's what we did.
So you took out a loan to make this. How did you convince your wife first? Sorry, I just have to ask those
that's
questions.
That's a touchy subject. No, that's a good question. That's a touchy subject, and it's caused a little bit of challenges. I mean, I'll be honest with you, because I'm very passionate about what I'm up to, and no, I'm not having a midlife crisis. I don't wish I was 20 years old again. I'm a 55-year-old man who's just grateful for his life experiences. And my wife of 26 years has been a huge blessing for me. She's my rock. So, she doesn't really understand it all, to be honest. Like, who wants to watch a 25-year-old movie? You're crazy. Well, I don't believe I'm crazy. I believe obviously, I'm very biased too. I was on that search. I helped film a lot of the footage in those films. And I remember all the stories and the trips, whether it was with Tom or Sonny or Brock Little or Martin Daly, all the traveling we did. And I just think, and I see all the great stuff today online on internet, Instagram. There's so much good stuff. But in my humble opinion, some of the stuff we did back in the day in the 80s and 90s stands the test of time.
It clearly does. And obviously I'm coming from a bias point too, because my childhood nostalgia is obviously wrapped in this as well. But there's something about Sonny's and the search and the shooting style of it that you don't see today. I feel like when I watch a lot of surf clips, they don't get as close. They don't frame it as nice. It's almost too clean. It's sometimes too pulled back. And something about the search is very immersive, the way it's shot. The the clips of some of the behind the scenes of part of the travel mixed with the where there's like video footage of you guys traveling at the airport or on a boat, mixed in with like the really nice film quality as well, and just the lighting and music, everything tied into it. It just I don't know. To me, it has a magical quality that you don't get from a lot of clips and videos and films today that I watch. Like even when I watch like a 100-foot wave or any of those incredible films, that are beautifully made, there's just something about this. It really captures the idealism of what the search was. Um, can you first like help some of our listeners understand what the search was? I feel like we're talking about it, but we actually haven't actually. There's probably a lot of people being like, "What is the search?" And if you can go into that, and then I'd love to just know like how you got involved with it.
That's a good question. Well, as far as the search series, I mean, that was kind of a marketing opportunity that Rip Curl and Derek Hynd came up with because, as we know, Tom Curren got off the tour,
Hmm.
and they created this incredible program for Tom and the rest of the team to basically travel around the world and surf waves that may have never been surfed before. So my early memories of the search was Derek Hynd going, "Okay, guys, you're going to get on this boat. You're going to go up the coast of Mozambique, and there's waves up there." 6 days later on a boat, we're like, "What waves? What's wrong with Derek?" I mean, so the search concept was really about exploration. Obviously, everyone knows about J Bay, Hawaii, Tahiti. A lot of the waves we got, but we were on some monumental surf trips, whether it was the Mentawai Islands on Martin Daly's Indies Trader in 1993,
One of the
which was really the
first.
first photo trip into that zone. It was actually the first
Yeah.
photo trip. The year before, Tom, Carroll, and Kelly were out there, but it wasn't really documented. So
Yeah.
I believe the Search 2 was the first, 1993 was the first time that area has been documented. So that was really the search campaign. It's like, hey guys, we got an exotic location for you. It's before Surfline, internet, cell phones. It's a different traveling back then, as you know.
Hmm.
No FCS fins. You had to pack all your fins, and a little challenging to travel. And a lot of times, I would be honest, we were like, what are we doing here? You know, you're on the boat for 3 weeks, but at the end of every single trip, we always managed to score some unique wave, or obviously having a good time with all the boys. So the search itself, I believe, was one of the most incredible concepts ever created. And when you put a guy like Tom Curren as, you know, the leader, so to speak, I mean, how can you go wrong, right?
It's
Um, so
yeah. It is like the searches
yeah, so
was probably the
it,
greatest marketing campaign that surfing has ever seen. I would dare say, because it it's very aspirational. Like surfers, when you watch that, and it was also just so clean. You know, the advertising was just an image of a perfect wave with that logo, the search logo, and that was it. There was nothing, no gimmicks, nothing else added to it. It was, you know, everything that I think many people dream about surfing to be was kind of like the search, you know, rugged travel, looking for that new destination, that endless summer kind of, you know, vibe to it, with Kevin Naughton, Craig Peterson kind of adventure mixed with, you know, the best surfers in the world and some of the best waves. I mean, it really, nothing had ever been done like that before. And it was, yeah, it's one of the coolest concepts for our listeners who may not be
uh,
aware.
I agree. I was just blessed to be a part of that. And going back to the look of it,
Yeah.
you know, we shot it on 16 millimeter film. That's called film celluloid. I mean, 4K digital. It's great. Film has a different look. First off, for film, you got to physically touch the film. You got to take it out of the can. You know, you got to worry about light leaks. You know, there's different processes to you just load a film camera. And when
Mhm.
you load a film camera, depending what camera you're using, you may have 3 minutes of footage in that camera. So that means you're shooting very strategically. You
Yeah.
know, you're not just pulling a trigger on anything. You're like, okay, this looks like a good wave, and you're hopeful that the surfer is able to have a good ride, right? And it so you that was probably the biggest challenge, is the documentation back in those days, shooting on film cameras, because film was not only challenging to load, expose properly. You never knew what you had until you made it back to the States, got it into a lab in California, and physically had it telecinied. You didn't even know what you got. Even for the still guys, they shot slides. You never know what you got. You see it in your viewfinder, it looks great. Did it come out? Well, we hope so. So we had a lot of faith, and luckily we were professionals, and we did our best to expose things and keep things safe. But you know, we also had to carry 50 pounds plus of film there, shoot it all, and then bring it back safely. You know,
And
we
hope
used
the
to go to
X-ray
the X-ray
machines don't
machine.
mess it up. I can
Well,
expose all
that's
of it.
that's it. So yeah, so we actually, a lot of times you do hand checks. You'd be like, what's a hand check? That would mean you go to the guy at the X-ray machine, whatever country, and sometimes they don't even know what you're talking about. You're like,
Yeah.
no, it can't go through the machine. Please physically touch it. We'd bring a black bag, so if someone needed to open a can, they could feel it in there. So there was a lot. It was a lot different documenting things back then. But I believe the film elements, 16 millimeter. We also shot 8 millimeter, which is more of that
Hmm.
grainy kind of home movie look. And like you mentioned, we were fortunate we had high 8 cameras, digital cameras, so we could capture a lot of sound and lifestyle footage. And as you can see from that bonus footage in the Blu-ray, Sonny Miller, I mean, he was the best documentarian I've ever been around. It's one thing to set up and shoot the film of the action. He constantly had that camera rolling. That's how he's got the most amazing footage that of the trips that you've seen, because you've saw that bonus footage. So, I mean, I have to say, I've been on a lot of surf trips. Being on a surf trip with Sonny Miller was something, the highlight of my life. I learned a lot
Captain
from
Fun
Sonny,
Times,
and
right?
and I realized Captain Fun, yeah, and so you know, it's that's why I believe that's that look, Tyler. It's a unique look. You're kind of limited on your timing, so you're very selective on your shooting. And we also shot with a lot of different film stocks, because so that's why it doesn't always look the same. You're like, how come
Mm-hmm.
this looks a little grainy or this looks that? Well, there's different film stocks, different emulsions, possibly different lighting. So everything kind of had a unique feel. And I agree, today everything looks great, but it all looks the same.
Yeah, it's definitely like each segment lives unto itself, right? Like especially in the search movies, because the footage is the way it's edited, it's shot around the areas you're shooting in. J Bay has a very unique look and feel to G-Land, and like even that end segment in the search, where it's juxtaposing Curren and Damien Hardman, Duma. You could see it's just there's a totally different quality to each film stock that you see it, and each area has its own feel and vibe, which is I don't know what it does. There must be some medical biological explanation, but it's really amazing how it can create almost a space. I feel like when you watch it, like you can really transport to that space when you watch that and you see that lighting and everything. It's amazing. Like I see a little clip of that footage and I'll be like, oh, that's from the Damien Hardman trip in G-Land in 1992. Oh, that's Curren J. Bay first year. But then, oh, that's Curren J. Bay second year, that's a little different. You can tell just by that little graininess difference. It's incredible.
It is incredible, and that's part of the process that we got this film re-released is we went through Sonny's archive, and I started an archiving company a couple years ago because there's so much footage, and you have all this analog footage. Well, you can't look at it unless you have the right tape decks.
Mm-hmm.
You want to look at the old film footage, you need your own Cintel, which I purchased. So because I've taken tapes up to Hollywood, it's like, yeah, they'll do it for you. Now, you go up there with 1,000 tapes, you better bring a big checkbook, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we pretty much invested into an archiving company so we could get this all digital, and this remastered movie is the first of many cool things we're going to be doing with this old footage. We plan to create some amazing behind the scene projects with it, and just I just feel it's a very important thing to do. Going back to, you asked earlier, how did I even get on the search? That's a great question. So I was not on the search. I wasn't on the search one, actually.
Yeah.
The Search 1, which was filmed in 92, that was Sonny Miller and Sonny's childhood friend, Thomas DeSoto, who filmed that J-Bay stuff in 92 and documented Tom's first wave at J-Bay. Steve Spalding was in G-Land with Duma and Greenie at the time, right? So they kind of had those little, competing waves, right? Tom's a regular footer, obviously he's at J-Bay.
Technically riding the same swell.
Yeah, exactly. So so that first search was monumental. I remember watching it going, oh my gosh, this looks like the coolest thing ever. And then I've known Sonny. I met Sonny actually at Sandy Beach in 1986, I believe, at the Gotcha Pro. I remember he was a commentator for Surfer Magazine, Surfer TV. I'm like, who's this Cali guy, right? He's got all the nice lenses. He must be like, a trust fund. And then I met Sonny and helped him out with the Life's a Beach movie, and we got to be friends. And all of a sudden I'm trying to remember how this exactly happened. Now I remember I was with Chris Bystrom in Australia, helping Chris with some of his movies. Another legendary filmmaker.
We'll get into that.
Well,
we'll get into that.
Yeah, we can get it. We'll get into that. So basically, I got a call from Sonny asking me, "Hey, Derek, I got an opportunity for you." I'm like, "Yeah." What are you doing like the next 3 months? Not just I got a job for you. It's like, what are you doing like 3 months? Because you're going on the search. That means you're traveling. And he goes, I need a good water camera operator, and I'd love to have you on board. I was like, yeah. When do we leave? Where are we going? Right? He's, I can't tell you all the details yet. And I remember hanging up, and I don't know if it's my brother who was talking. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go on the search with Tom. I was just like, it was like the biggest dream ever to go to be able to document Tom and the boys, and who knows where we're going next. And I remember someone asking me, yeah, but how much are you going to get paid? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't even ask about it. It wasn't nothing to do with money. Yeah, it was like, no, it's an opportunity to go on the most monumental experience of my life to this day, and I've done a lot of great things. So Sonny blessed me with one of the best opportunities of my life, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Let me ask, like, how was it then? So there was rumors that there was fights over the footage of Sonny's at one point. Like, I had heard a rumor that this guy Yazzie in Canada had access to the footage, and I heard there was like controversy over. There was so many rumors. Let me just say that, or gossip of what was happening in the interim, and who owned the footage. But it sounds like everything actually was quite calm and relaxed in the background, and everyone's just speculating over time.
Yeah, a lot of speculations. I didn't hear all those stories. I was kind of deep
Lucky.
in on it. I knew what was happening. Yeah, so I knew what was happening. And just to let you know, no one even knew what this. You're the first person I've ever really told that that's happened. I've never. This is not on. You're the first person putting this on record, so to speak. So there wasn't any pictures behind the scenes of, hey, look at us, we're doing all this cool stuff. It was really an underground situation that myself and my good friend Richard Chesky helped to protect this footage, keep it safe in storage, keep it in a climate-controlled storage, and really not really knowing what we were going to do with it. To be honest with you, it's like it's slightly overwhelming how much footage Sonny amassed. Obviously, we're talking about the search here, but Sonny
It's
was in on
more.
the first tow-in sessions with. Yeah, with Laird and Derek, Double D outside the first foil boarding sessions. He was pretty much, the
In
man
God's
behind all the
hand.
original Roxy stuff. Yeah, in God's hands. I mean, his archive
Zoltar, was it
is
Zoltar?
is is.
Zoltan? The mass surfer that he
Oh,
had.
Zolar. Yeah,
Zolar, that's
Zolar.
it. Zolar, yeah.
Yeah, Zolar. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, if when we start to bring out more of Sonny's archive, you're gonna be like, wow, Sonny was involved in some of the most memorable and historic moments in surfing history. So it's amazing.
What about, how did you get the music approval for this? Because I know there's a lot of original stuff too with Arno Kimsey. He was like one of the music coordinators, and I know there was like the music was so important. Obviously you have Tom Curren Ocean Surf Aces in the first one, and some a little bit in some of the second, but it feels like Arno Kimsey was really heavily involved, and there were some other incredible musicians, it seems like, who contributed to the soundtrack, and that must have been quite a process to get all of that approved.
Yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things to get accomplished, being honest with you, because as you mentioned earlier, Rip Curl released that box set.
Hmm.
It wasn't remastered; it was the original 4x3 film, and that was put on this DVD. Well, when Sonny did all the music in the '90s, that was for a VHS release, so there was really never any legal paperwork behind that music being released properly. That was one of the upsets for Sonny, and that wasn't remastered. So re-releasing this film, the music was the biggest challenge. I'm fortunate to have a good friend of mine who's also a lawyer,
Nice.
Mickey, and she helped me navigate this journey, which it took me like 5 years. I'll be honest, because I was like, okay, I got to get a hold of all these bands. I got to talk to them. Sonny didn't have all the paperwork. Wasn't sure what was ever originally agreed upon, but I knew if I was going to re-release a film in Sonny's honor and more importantly, a Rip Curl project with Tom Curren, that it had to be legal.
Yeah.
You can't just put this out and hope no one's coming after you.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest challenge, to be honest, Tyler, is getting all this music legally cleared. It was a huge process. Speaking of Arnold, Arnold did create a lot of the original music, and Tom played drums on a lot of it too. I mean, Search 2, Tom's, he's a great musician. He's heavily involved in the soundtrack. As far as searching for Tom Curren, so going back a bit, so I contacted all the bands. Now
Galaxy
Arno,
500. Ooh. Awesome.
Yeah, so these were challenges too, because the band would be like, "Yeah, Derek, this is unreal. You got to talk to the publisher." Anyone who knows anything about music licensing realizes that Buddy may be the best band friend ever in the best band, and he's saying use your music. Well, you got to still get the clearance from the publisher, because there's, the legal clearing of music is very challenging. So we were very fortunate to even get this done. I'll be honest. There was a song by Greenspoon,
Hmm.
very incredible Australian band. Now their label is called Sony. Anyone hear of Sony? Yeah. So you're dealing with, like, the people are like, "Oh, sure. What's your budget?" I'm like, no budget. Can you help us out? Okay, we have a minimal fee. Let's say $1,000 a track. Oh, well, yeah, you can use it. That's $10,000 a track. You're just like, So
But
with
nobody
some
even
good
listens to
negotiation
Grinspoon these
and
days.
no, but it's like the band. Like I said, the bands were always like, "Go ahead, use it," but you
Yeah.
had to get the legal clearances through. Luckily, there was only two really big publishers we dealt with, and by the grace of God, and as I was always saying, Sonny Miller is still up there directing, and I believe it transcends me. I mean, I did my best, but I believe a lot of things were helped us out to get the legal rights to all the music is what we did. So all this is all cleared
Amazing.
legally. And that's one of the reasons I need some financial support, and I'm all in on it. But like I said, it has to be done. If you've never watched Tom surf, you've never seen this film. If you're a surfer, it's in your duty to watch this and understand what, in my humble opinion, what real surfing is like, from a really incredible human being, which is Tom. Three-time world champion, all the accolades, but a really good human being,
Yeah.
a good guy, and I just felt that, like I said earlier, this is my duty to do in life, and we're grateful that it was accomplished, and we're fortunate, and we're also optimistic that all the 8 million surfers around the world, a percentage of them want to help support us independent filmmakers by streaming the film online on our platform nalu.tv or purchasing one of the Blu-rays. And another side note, no one knows this either, but all the revenue generated obviously is going to pay expenses, and then it's all after, it's basically going back to my company and Tom and me. It's not going to Rip Curl. It's not going to
Amazing.
corporate. You're actually supporting independent filmmakers, and you're supporting Tom and Sonny. So that's that's
And
what's going on there.
to further release more footage also, which is amazing. To me it seems crazy though that Rip Curl is not supported at all financially, because there's, like, their logos are everywhere on this, and I'm like, dude, what a coup it could be for them, like, to really take advantage of this. I mean, it's to me, I'm like, jeez, seems like a no-brainer for marketing. But and I personally also, I feel this film, every surf school should show their students. Like, every student that takes a surf lesson, this should be like one of the first things you watch, because that gives you the perfect technique right there.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same thought, Tyler, and it goes back to speaking to Claw, who I've
It's
considered
not
him a
this
friend of
company
mine. I mean, I
anymore.
slept on his couch. No, it's not. But part of it to me is like honoring their brand as well. I
Hmm.
mean, this is a corporation. They make clothes. They have incredible search movies with Mason and Mick and all the
Hmm.
boys now, but those are more promotional pieces. Everything is free on YouTube, so it's challenging for people to, like, what do you mean I got to pay for the movie? It's like, well, we're artists, and any support is helpful. But as far as the Rip Curl, Rip Curl is, I would say, they're our media partner, so they do
Okay,
support it. They're super
cool.
stoked on it.
That's
Obviously,
great.
it's positive for their brand, yeah. But with that being said, I wouldn't expect any corporation. I mean, I think like you, where I'm a surfer, it's like it is a no brainer. I would have
Hmm.
Tom at all the screenings, live music, but they're a corporation. They've been very supportive of me in the encouragement. Neil Ridgway, who actually
Yeah.
is not with Rip Curl anymore. He was a huge part of getting this done
Nice.
in Australia, right? And obviously PJ and Dylan Slater in America have been very helpful. Obviously Tom. I mean, he was,
Yeah.
he's cool. He gave me the opportunity and permission to do it. So I feel I agree with what you said, your sentiment on the brands and corporations looking at the legacy people, but you look at what in there, you put yourself in their shoes. They're really about coming up with the next board short or thing to sell for clothing companies. They're not really entertainment companies like us.
True. Well, did you reach out to Derek at all, Hynd, in this process?
Yes, I did reach out to Derek. He was one of the first people I talked to. I emailed him, told him what I was up to, and he kind of goes, "Good luck, Hoffman." It's kind of like, because I mean, everyone has their experiences, with the corporations. But yeah, Derek Hynd has been a huge positive support as well. So I did reach out through emails, and we had one phone call, and he's been very helpful and very supportive as well. So, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, this is a Sonny Miller film, but the search in this particular movie, Derek Hynd is a huge part of it. Huge part of it.
What was it like watching Sonny and Derek edit Searching for Tom Curren? What, like, give us a fly on the wall view of like what was going on, and I can't, like, I unfortunately did not get to see the two together, but I can imagine it must have been electric and hilarious.
It was all of that and more. I mean, you're talking long hours, right? So, I mean, there'd be times where it was 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm gonna go to sleep, and my bed was in the couch in the studio, right? It was in Sonny's house in La Costa, right? His second story had this big studio, all the tapes, and editing back then. There was no there was computers. We had the original, like I believe it was Media 100, the original, like online editing, but everything was tape to tape.
Wow.
Meaning you had to take each tape, insert it in, and it would find the shot and insert that in and pick out another tape. So it was a long process to edit back then. And I got some good stories on the editing process. I mean, Sonny is the creative vision with his brain and just his visuals. But Derek was very integral as well with some music choices. So the two of them together created this masterpiece. I'm not sure in the exact time how long it took them to edit, but it's not like today where you go on your iTunes and you can cut something in like 5 minutes. I mean, this was a lot different to edit back then. It was a lot of note taking, logs. Where is that shot? What tape is it on? But that process of seeing Derek and Sonny edit, I mean, it was amazing. And at the time, I didn't think much of it, to tell you the truth. I was like, oh, that's cool. You're making a movie about Tom. I mean, he deserves it, but I've seen him surf. He surfs great. Until that movie came out and I watched it, I was like, wow, you guys did a great job. This is amazing. With the musical choices, the editing style, Tom's words in there. I mean, you listen to Searching for Tom Curren. Tom kind of lays out a blueprint of how to surf if you listen closely, with bottom turns and his style of surfing. So
it's no different than juggling, apparently. What Tom says.
Yeah, I mean that was the funniest line ever. I mean, yeah,
it's like yeah, sure.
Yeah, but then again, Tom can ride anything. I mean, I remember we did this trip down from Queensland. It was like some of the boys, we drove all the way down from Queensland in one of the Rip Curl vans, which was half petrol and half some other gas that you could have only find in some gas stations. We picked up Tom in the Sydney airport, and we were heading to Bell's, right? And everyone's like, "Where are you guys? Bell's starts in 4 days. We'll be there." Anyway, Tom would just grab someone's board off the beach, right? I mean, he could just surf anything, and he blew my mind really on just his skill set of being able to ride a wave on any craft. I mean, you seen he was just riding skimboards recently. I mean,
yeah, I mean, there's like talk of like how he took out like the Rabbage and everything, and there's like just Yeah, he would borrow boards. I mean, the Tommy Peterson Fireball Fish was really Frankie's board, wasn't it? Like it wasn't even Tom's. Like he just wanted to take it out.
Yeah, he that's correct. That was Frankie's board. And going back to that real quickly about that day at Bawa, that night before we were in Nias, and we had a nice evening. We had some fun. We did actually a full moon surf, which was
Wow.
bizarre. At like midnight. And it was like me and Sonny were like we're blinding the guys with the light so we could see and they couldn't see. But I don't believe any of that footage ever made it in any of the films yet. But we'll
No.
put that in some of the behind the scenes stuff. But the next morning we basically showed up at this. I'll never forget it. I'm like, what? I felt like I was at Sunset Beach almost, and I'm looking at the Hawaii 5-0 wave in reverse. I'm like, where are we? Or I didn't even know where we were. And the next thing you know, Dave-O's out there. Everyone's getting some good waves. Now, one of the reasons Tom rode that fish is Dave-O took out Tom's larger board, and so Tom just put the fish out. And to be honest with you, I remember I was on the tin boat with Martin, Brian Singer, and Ted Grambeau, and they're like, "What is Tom doing?" Right? Which is, don't question Tom's genius. I'm just telling you, Tom's going to sit out the back on a board that none of us could ever ride, maybe in 3-foot waves, not 10-foot grinding. I mean, come on. And next thing you know, he's on like the wave of the day.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, I can remember that like that day was yesterday. It was, and at the time, like all these trips, you're never thinking like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so monumental. You're just in the moment, right? You're like, wow, this is unreal. Did I got enough film? I don't want to miss anything. And I mean, honestly, I didn't realize how monumental that trip was until after. I was like, wow, that was like historic right there. I mean, Tom kind of set the bar on what can be ridden, board length, and I believe that was a start of a fish revolution, if I remember correctly.
It changed, I think, what could be ridden in larger surf, and it only took the surf world, 20 something years later to start riding such smaller boards really in bigger waves. I mean, so for our listeners, there's a session. We're talking about this incredible session, and we haven't laid it out for this. For our listeners, there's a session in Beyond the Boundaries, which I believe was the third search film, and it's one day huge right hand reef break. It breaks like sunset, like you said, Derek, and it's massive. And at the time, like people did not ride small boards in big waves, and also it was a fairly conservative environment for surfboard experimentation at that time. People were not riding all the different boards that we see today. It was standard stock thrusters, 6.3 to whatever guns you're riding. But for the most part, people did not ride smaller boards. And this board by Tommy Peterson was a 5.7 Fish. The squat board with channels, with the step channel on the bottom. I mean, it for that time period, it was funky looking, and people were like, just tripping when we saw this. It was like, holy crap, because we all thought and believed that you had to ride, a 7.0 or something in this scale and size of surf. And Tom just took it apart. I mean, no disrespect to Dave-O and Frankie and all them who charged and surfed amazing, but Tom stood out, like completely stood out, and it's mind blowing. And it changed the zeitgeist of surfing. It changed everyone's opinion on what could be ridden. And next thing you know, you see Chris Ward and Corey Lopez riding, big rock piles in Hawaii on like little fishes. It really changed. You must have been tripping.
It did. I believe it was a monumental session, really. And that day was basically Dave-O, Frankie, Byron. They're getting barreled off. Nonstop barrels on that kind of inside bowl, right? And it was like everyone's like, "Where's Tom? Where's Tom?" I was like, "Be ready," because Tom will sit out the back. could be for a half hour or longer, and everyone's getting all these great waves. Be ready. Make sure your camera's loaded because Tom will be on the wave of the day. And he was on multiple waves of the day. I mean, I'll never forget him. He's coming down on that fish. I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, I'm looking at it through my film camera thinking, not really knowing what to think, to tell the truth. Just going, okay, this is amazing. And I remember that one of the first waves, he's bottom turns. I mean, he's in the barrel. I'm looking right into the barrel because I'm shooting off the tin boat, kind of like the poor man's water angle. Sonny was up on Martin's boat for a lot of that, kind of perched up, and then he went to the land and got those land angles. So my responsibility was that water looking into the barrel. And I'll never forget seeing Tom come out of one of those barrels, and I just looked at Ted and Sing Ding and Martin were just like, I mean, everyone's kind of dumbfounded, to be honest. Like, did you guys just see that? Yeah, that was, what did we just see? Well, we saw Tom Curren do what Tom does, surf with grace and style, tries new things, experimentation with that board, and kind of as he describes it, so nonchalant. Yeah, it was just like an easy roll in. I was like, easy roll in? Are you kidding me, bro? It was because we never really discussed it after the fact, other than we had a couple cold ones, and was like, yeah, that was awesome. Because like I said, we couldn't watch the footage. It wasn't like, hey, look on my phone, bro. I'm like posted Instagram. No one even knew what we got till when the films came out or the still photos from Teddy.
So you after the session, I mean, what were, I mean, I'm curious, like what Davo and Frankie and Byron's reaction was, even like that. Were they like, Tom, you're a freak, or was it kind of nonchalant, kind of casual, like, yeah, that was a great session. Those waves were great, and that's it. No one was commenting on what the fuck were you thinking?
Yeah, no one really. You don't question Tom. I mean, come on, he knows what he's doing. But at the time, you didn't really know the level that what Tom was getting these incredible waves, because we're on the inside, right? We're positioned on the tin boat on the inside. All the boys are on the outside, right? So unless you got a wave before Tom and you were paddling back out, you may not have really seen what Tom was accomplishing. But all the boys were witnessed that. And I believe they all, from my recollection, there was a lot of laughing, happiness, and probably all of them thinking, I could never do that, because none of them took the fish out. I mean,
wondering.
I don't think anyone,
I was wondering if they're like, I'm going to try this fish now. Like I wondered if they were ever going to try it then after that, or they're just like, nah, I'm not touching that thing.
Yeah, I think after you see Tom ride that, you're just like, yeah, I'll stick to my my 711 or I don't remember all the sizes, but yeah, no one took that board out after, So that's a day that lives in history. We're blessed we documented it as I mean, we missed a couple waves too. I mean, that's the thing with film, right? You're trying to you had a film camera, but if you happen to roll out, you don't want to miss something. So that's where I believe a couple of shots are on video, but for the most part, we documented that very well, Sonny and I. And obviously Teddy Grambeau had some incredible still images from that day too.
And then Tom wrote the article, Who Are These Children, in Surfer Magazine. And it was a beautifully written article. And then we're like, when we saw it come out in the movie, it was like, gotta get access to that footage. I want to ask, like, what did you discover about the films and footage while going through anything? Was it, you must have been going through it with like new eyes, and like, was there anything new or different that you saw in it or discovered or have been discovering as you go through the footage?
Yeah. Well, I would say basically what I realized is we shot a lot of footage. I mean, I was like, wow, there's a lot of footage. You look at the film, there's 40, 50 minutes. I mean, we shot, 10, 20, 30 hours through all these trips, tons of footage. So what I realized is there's so much unseen footage. There's so much great lifestyle footage that the next project that I'll be working on is to kind of create a series of behind the scenes of the search, so to speak. That's just, maybe uncharted waters through the eyes of Sonny Miller. Basically something that can take us back on this journey to not only look at a lot of the unseen surf footage, but just to kind of take you on that journey of what it was like to get on these searches. Everyone watches the waves, and we had a little lifestyle in there, but I mean, it was a mission to get to some of these places, and you're in boats and you're in storms, and you're not on the land for weeks possibly. So what I really realized, and I knew this too, Sonny, I've seen the footage, but for me to, with my own eyeballs, to go through it all, I realized a few things. Wow, we got some really good footage here, and it's another thing that needs to be seen. And I also realized that Tom surfing. I mean, I've watched Tom surf, and we all have. Is just kind of like poetry in motion. I mean, it's very graceful. He's very stylistic. It never looks like he's trying. I mean, the funnest thing was like, Hoffmann, did you get a surf? I'm like, yeah. Every time I would paddle out, it's either in the late evening, and someone would do something. I felt guilty. I'm like, I got to get my camera right. So, but I also feel like I became a better surfer by watching Tom. Now that's just in my head, right? I'm sure, but I always like, wow, maybe I became a better surfer. I'm with Tom so much. I'm filming him. Maybe this sort of transcend into my mind. I don't think it did, but I try and think like it did. But so I would say just basically just realizing how much great footage we were able to acquire on those trips, and just how fun, even though some of them were very challenging, looking back on it now, just how fun those a lot of those search trips were.
What sort of shenanigans would go on during those trips? I'm curious, like, was there hazing? Was, Nathan Hedge was on some of them. He was pretty young. He must have gotten some grommet abuse. Like, I mean, Davo was a teenager, he was a grom as well. Like, must have been pretty wild, and lots of bintangs going down.
Lots of bintangs, not too much hazing, but you're right. Hedgie was 13 years old. I mean, I believe he got taken out of school. I'm like, I mean, he's a 13-year-old, young grom, so to speak, on this trip with Tom. The first trip I was on with Hedgie, I believe, was the third search trip, the second Mentawai trip we did. And I mean, Hedgie is a legend. I was so impressed with his surfing and his demeanor. And I mean, he was 13, but he thought he was 18 or 20. I mean, he's a very well-spoken, well-mannered young man who's not much hazing. We did some crazy stuff, though. I mean, we would obviously have beers at night. I'll never forget when Brock Little was on that first surf trip that Mentawai, not the one in Bawa.
Yeah.
And I remember Brock, that's why I knew when Brock became a stuntman, I'm like, I'm surprised. I mean, Brock would like jump, do backflips off the boat. I'm like, that looks dangerous. Next thing you know, we're all doing it. It's midnight, and then, so a lot of fun times on the boats. Shenanigans, yeah, a couple of coldies. Everyone kind of lets loose, put on some music, a little dance party. But for the most part, I believe we were a pretty respectful crew. When you're on the boat, that is. Now, when you're in a city and everyone kind of can go on their own way, it could get a little different. But on the boat, you're like, I got to see the guy in the morning. I better be pretty cool.
Well, and Martin Daly is the captain. You wouldn't want to piss him off. He's quite the character into
Martin
himself.
Is the man. Yeah, I mean, think of Martin Daly, what he was able to achieve. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you exploited this spot." Even to me, I remember someone's like, "Oh, you guys destroyed Mentawai." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Destroyed it? We never mentioned where it was."
No.
And someone was going to discover these waves. Thank goodness Martin had the foresight and vision to get these boats, knew where to go, got us there safely. I mean, we had some crazy storms where, as Martin said, you fall overboard, you're gone at night. It's a dangerous situation. So Martin was an incredible captain, a good surfer, and monumental in those search discoveries in the Mentawais.
Ever have any
I actually just had a great talk with him about all that.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yes.
What was he?
Yes.
What did
there
he
was
have
a time
to say?
where I believe, well, luckily he had a great Indonesian crew.
Nice.
There was a time, I believe, at night there was a big storm. Everything shifted, so all of a sudden we were anchored. The wind shifted. The boat's blowing into this reef, right? It's like, got to get I have to think more about the stories, but we had a couple close calls, I would say. I got one really interesting story, actually.
Ooh.
I believe it was that same night the storm came in.
That's
We
in the
were
search
anchored,
too. That's in the
which
search too footage with like the lightning and everything at
it was.
night. God, that footage is amazing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was amazing that night. And yeah, no, it's fine. That was an amazing that night was very also dangerous because I never forget it. Everyone's like, panicking. The boat shifted. The crew's doing what they got to do. Martin's making sure the boat's safe. We're not going to swing into the reef. And next thing you know, you hear this: the dinghy's gone, which was our little tin boat back then. We didn't have jet skis. It was a tin boat that was vital for us to not only film from, but to get to the beach to film from or pick the boys up. It was like, and it was a safety aspect too, right? Next thing you know, you hear, "Oh, the tin boat's gone." And I'll never forget because I looked around and all of a sudden I see Brock Little. And Brock picks up like the biggest board we had and he just jumped overboard.
No way.
And I think Hornbaker got a shot. Martin's like, "What the heck?" And Brock was gone and into the darkness. And but we're kind of worrying about the boat like swinging into the reef here. And we're like, it's kind of like a little bit of panic going on. And next thing, but Martin was really worried because you're not supposed to go overboard at night at all. There's not. Where did Brock go? Well, this is where Brock went. Brock went and rescued that tin boat because 20 minutes later, here just and here's Brock bringing the tin boat back after he jumped overboard with that board in the pitch dark. I mean, I would never do that. But Brock basically rescued that tin boat, brought it back, and then Martins was not happy. He was happy he got the tin boat back, but he wasn't happy that was could have been a dangerous situation for the average person.
Yeah.
Brock Little, as we know, was
Not
above average in everything he did. So Brock Little brought that tin boat back, and I remember just looking. I'm thinking, oh my God, you're a legend, brother. I mean, I know Brock, he charges big waves, but to do that, and he's like, Sonny said something. He basically said, "Well, you need something to film from." I was like, "Wow, Brock, you're unreal." So that just a little bit of a tidbit story I don't think that's ever been talked about, but that's something I would like to bring back is more of these stories that happen that people aren't aware of. Yeah,
we need a book for this. That's what I see. A search book of stories and tales and myths and legends, because it really is like there's so many. I imagine there are so many stories that have not been told, so many just iconic moments that stand out and that are inspirational. Like, I mean, to me, Brock going overboard looking for that dinghy's got shades of Eddie Aikau in there, right there. Like it's fascinating. I mean, there's also like the footage from the search one, which you weren't there, but when Brock jumped off that wrecked ship, in South Africa, it was crazy. Like
that was actually Search 2.
Oh, that was Search 2.
That was a Search 2.
Sorry,
yeah, I was there. I actually filmed that. That was in Western. No, you're good. Not to cut you off. I apologize.
No,
but that was Search 2. That was Western Australia. So that's another good Brock story. Let me know when you want me to get into that one.
Get into that one. What was that? For our listeners, there's a shot in Search 2 where Brock climbs up this wrecked ship, and he must have been, I don't know how high up he was, but it was an abandoned wreck barge ship, like monstrous ship. Like I would say it looked like he was about 100 feet up. I don't know. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but he was crazy, and he jumps off this thing. Like, what was he thinking? What were you? Was it a bet? What happened here?
No, it wasn't. Well, that was a bizarre. That was a great trip. First off, we were in Western Australia. We're in this place called Nalu, which is some amazing ways, and we're camping though. We're like literally camping. And we're driving the 4-wheel drive through the sand dunes, and we're driving down the coast looking for waves. And next thing you know, there's this boat. It looks like it basically run aground into the side of this mountain cliff. And we pull over, and we're like, "Wow, that's radical!" And I remember getting a shot. And next thing, I just never forget it. This is another Brock story. I'm like, "What is going on?" Brock walks towards the boat, and we're just pick up the camera, we start filming. And now this boat was about 10 feet from it wasn't like you could walk onto this boat, which was run aground into this cliff. So there was a rope hanging down. And as you said in the search too, we documented this. Brock Little jumps from the cliff 5 to 8 feet, another thing I would never do, and grabs onto this rope all of a sudden and scales up the side of this rope to get onto this huge ship that's run aground. And after he did that, I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Seriously, I was like, what's going on with Brock, man? Right? And then next thing you know, he's like walking up the boat. And next thing you know, he's on the highest point of the boat. And 100 feet, I believe it was at least 100 feet. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating too, but it's a huge ship. And I mean, ships are, it was so high up there. And Sonny's kind of tripping too, because we're like, is he going to jump off? What if there's rocks down there? We don't know what's under the water. And neither did Brock. And next thing you know, I mean, me and Sonny were just kind of both tripping out. We're like, Sonny's like, make sure you get that shot. I'm like, got that? Yeah, we're getting our angles. And Brock, he has not even to say, hey, guys, you want to film me? I'm going to jump off the boat. He just does stuff, right? Kind of like Tom, just do stuff. Your camera guys, you should be ready to get it. Next thing you know, Brock jumps off that boat, and you saw in the search too, lands in the water and swims to the shore. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, Brock is incredible. He's insane. And boy, that guy's got some big cojones. I mean, huge cojones. So, and he did it twice, by the way. He did it twice.
He did it twice?
He did it again.
He's like, he did it the twice. First shot wasn't good enough?
So I'm going to do it again. And I'm like, that's why when he became a stuntman, I'm like, oh, that's their calling, Brock. You're just, and there's another story in that too, where he was driving around. I'm not sure if that was in one of the searches. He was driving the 4-wheel drive sand, in
Nicaragua.
the sand dunes, and
it rolls.
Yeah, and he just, he's. But that boat with Brock was one of the craziest things, and I've seen some crazy stuff, and I was like, "Wow, Brock, you're insane." He just smiles and laughs. Oh, did you get him? I'm like, yeah, bro.
Not only that, like it didn't look like there was an easy way out of the water. It looked like pretty steep cliffs he would have to have climbed up, also to get out of the water once he dove in. Like crazy, amazing. Wow.
Wow. I've never seen any surfer do anything like that in my life. I mean, I've seen guys charge big waves, which to me is incredible and slightly insane, something I wouldn't do. But to jump off a ship, run aground, not knowing what's below you, not knowing how you're going to get up, but Brock pulled it off with style. I mean, it made it look easy. It's like, anyone else want to try? I was like, no, no one did that.
So I want to bring our listeners into this one shot that you took at J-Bay, and it's an iconic shot, and it's basically Curren is riding the skip fry fish that Derek had lent him, and you are shooting from the water, and he's doing these beautiful turns, he's riding, and then it kind of, the camera pans off and starts filming a bird just kind of taken off in this most graceful way. And to me, it's like truly one of the greatest moments in surf cinema, because it's this wonderful metaphor of Tom surfing in some ways. It's like, it almost feels like he's surfing on this beautiful fish that's shaped by skip fry that is, he's gliding, doing these beautiful turns, and it's almost like he transmorphs into the bird. That's how I see it almost. That must have been kind of, I mean, how did you, was that just pure instinct? I mean, I'm curious about that shot in general, and then that session too.
Yeah, that was instinct. I remember that day. It was Albatross. It was a small day at Albatross, maybe 2 feet, maybe some 3-footers. And, the boys are all surfing. And I was like, not really getting any good footage. I mean, obviously, Tom riding that skip fry, that was great footage. But, that's in. So Albatross is basically the very end of Jeffreys Bay. It's like it's the in bowl, so to speak, way down the line. So Tom had a lot of waves that day. I was filming it as best I could, trying to get in the right position. I had a Milliken, which is a high speed photos, like a kind of like a Photosonics. There's no viewfinder on these cameras. You just kind of point and shoot, right? And you try and get in the right position where you're not too far, not too close. And I just remember that wave because Tom was, cutting back about to blast a little roundhouse, and out of the corner of my eye, I remember seeing this bird. And I was like, whoa, that bird's cool. Should I move the camera? No, Derek, don't move the camera. It's Tom, right? So something kind of, it's hard to explain what I really went on, but I would say instinct is it. And I kind of panned it away, and here I am following this bird. Now, I never thought twice about that shot, to be honest, at the time. I didn't know. It felt right to do. But then actually I was like, oh, what was I doing, man? You took your camera off Tom, right? What if you did something else after that? So it's really just an instinctual thing, which you kind of get as a cameraman, especially when you're in the water. It's all about positioning. You're obviously working with the surfers. They know what you're doing. They're not going to run you over, and you're trying to get in the right spot. But I thank you for saying that about that shot, because now when I look back on it, I realize that kind of describes for me the whole search experience. Being able to document some of the best surfers in the world at the time, going on these incredible surf journeys in the ocean with Mother Nature, the birds, Mother Nature, dolphins, sharks. But that shot, to me, was one of my favorite shots, and I never really realized the importance of it till people like you mentioned how iconic that shot may be. And what's really interesting to me is we did a new trailer for the film. It's obviously all of Sonny's footage from the search. We have an incredible song done by David Alexei Jr., who's the lead guitarist of Steel Pulse. He wrote a song called The Search, and he's like, Derek, you want to use this? I'm like, yeah, it's beautiful. And his lyrics in there it all came together. He's talking about surfing and nature, and it was just, it was just a feeling, just like, surfers know the feeling. Cinematographers kind of know the feeling too. And I believe, looking back on that now, after Sonny's memorial paddle out, which we did at Solana Beach, his hometown, there was another bird kind of like that, this white bird that was kind of hovering around. And I remember Laird and everyone talked about, like, whoa, how's that bird? Oh, that was Sonny. So now I look at that, even though Sonny was with me filming at the time, that even is more important, that shot, because I feel like Sonny is still with us, and he's just flowing at a different, in a different situation, and it has a lot of meaning to me, even more so now.
Well, it also kind of closes out Searching for Tom Curren. It's the wave that closes it out. He's like, he goes, "It's no secret," and then like you see it pan out onto that bird. It's just like clearly Sonny saw something in that footage in the editing too, and I think it obviously connected with him, because that could have ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I remember that. He showed me, he goes, Derek, what made you do that? And I was thinking, oh gosh, I blew it, right? I took the camera off framing Tom, right? Because he was kind of just coming back on that roundhouse, and he may have come and done something more spectacular, and he looks at, I'll never forget, he goes, that's one of the cooler shots ever. And I was just like, wow, thanks, Sonny. I mean, that, it's just my job, but to get Sonny stoked on that shot was another highlight for me, and something very memorable to me. And every time I see those birds, I kind of think of Sonny in a way. It's really interesting.
Let's talk about your career now. You got to shoot with both Scott Dietrich and Chris Bystrom, some of my favorite surf filmmakers, next to Sonny, actually. Your first footage on the big screen was in Rolling Thunder with Scott Dietrich. How did that happen? How did that come about? And did you get to work closely with Scott, or was it just handing over footage to him?
Yes. So it was a combination of things. That was, I believe, late 80s. It was Rolling Thunder. Scott Dietrich was doing like kind of a theatrical release with Robbie Page. And me and Larry Haynes, Scott Dietrich's like, hey guys, you want to shoot some footage for my movie? I'm like, sure, what you got? And he handed me his movie camera, which was, I believe, a Bull U. And I remember swimming out the pipeline and Third Dip with Johnny Boy. And I basically shot his camera with his film, so I never saw the footage at all until he came back the next winter. And he goes, Derek, come over to my house in Rocky Point. And he puts it up on his wall with a sheet, right? It was old school. Here's your film. You put it on a projector. And it's that cool look of, film going through the sprocket and the light hitting the wall. And he showed me this footage that I shot of Pipeline and Dane Kealoha, Johnny Boy at Third Dips. And I was just like going, oh, my God. This was on his wall. This was before I even knew what it was going to really end up, which was a theatrical release. So fast forward a year or two later, because the film took a while to make films back then. When it was in the theater, I'll never forget. Me and Larry were in that theater, and because we both shot in that film, and I remember just watching footage on the big screen, thinking, "Wow!" As you mentioned in that the intro, that really inspired me to realize this is something I wanted to pursue. So I was very fortunate that I was a good swimmer. I had good skills shooting in the water and positioning. And the next year, I met a guy who was a legend to me because I remember watching his movie in the theater, Blazing Boards, Chris Bystrom, and I was like, "Who's this guy? He's talking." I thought he was not a kook, but I was like, "Who's this guy he's wearing white socks on the beach?" And I was like, "Wow, Chris Bystrom, legendary filmmaker." And a similar thing, I got to meet him. He's like, "Hey, Derek, I see you got a video camera in the housing. Maybe you can shoot stuff from my films." I'm like, oh man, I'd be honored. Same thing. It's not like how much. It was never about how much money I'm going to make. It was more like I get this opportunity to work with a legendary filmmaker. So Chris Bystrom was a huge mentor actually in my life. And this was late '80s. I was fortunate to shoot some water footage in Mad Men, Saints and Sinners, Breaking Down Walls,
favorites.
like some of his movies after Blazing Boards. And
Changing of the Guard.
I'll never forget this either. Yeah, Changing of the Guard. There was like 3 or 4 movies that I was his water camera operator on it, and I never forget this either because back then we had a thing called Blockbuster. Yeah. So I remember going to Blockbuster and I would pick up the VHS and I'd be like, I'd go and I'd turn it over, and he was so kind to me. Like he put on the back epic water footage by Hawaii's or Derek Hoffmann. I was like, oh my gosh, my name's on the back of Chris Bystrom's VHS, and I'm on a Blockbuster. And he actually helped me so much in my career because he flew me to Australia, and I believe it was 91. And I hung out at his house, and he showed me how he made movies, and he told me the importance of music, which if you watch Chris Bystrom's movies, you realize he had great music in there. And I got to spend a lot of time with Chris and go on some great trips with Chris. I remember being at the Narrabeen Coke Classic in I think it was 92? The same time the Rodney King riots were going on. Oh, wow. Yeah, 92. And it was so cool because here I'm with Chris. Yeah, exactly. And it was so cool to be with Chris, right? Because Chris was a legend. I'm just this guy from Hawaii with the water camera. Like, this is the best thing ever. So Chris was a huge influence on my career, and unfortunately Chris isn't with us either. But I've been talking to his son Josh. I've known his son Josh since he was a baby. And another thing I would love to do is get Chris's movies remastered and brought back out because he's very deserving of it, and us as surfers are deserving to see these movies. Whether it's a cinema release, probably not, but at least get it streaming so we can all watch it.
His narration had huge impact on like my speech pattern even, the phrases that he used and the way he narrated the movies had tremendous impact. Like I for me at least, he was one of the last few, surf filmmakers to actually put voiceover narration onto surf movies. It's just hasn't really been done in 20 plus years, really. Most surf movies are music with maybe some segments or whatever, maybe some written narration, but there's no proper like old school surf narration, Bruce Brown style that, I think, Chris Bystrom really took up, and the humor and, it really gave you a sense and feel for a place, and I loved his movies were very impactful for sure. I mean, absolutely. Everything from Blazing Boards on down, to like Round the World in 80 Waves, Son of the Last Surf Movie. I mean, it's just, I go on and on and on. Surf Celluloid and all these movies were so good, And then he went and started a magazine, Pacific Longboarder, It was really cool. Like, he was quite prolific. If you think about it, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, he made almost 30 movies, and like you mentioned, some of the most iconic movies ever. I mean, obviously, Searching for Tom Curren is up there with one of the best movies ever. But Chris was more a little old school, right? Like you mentioned, his movies are very monumental, and I'm sure some of the guys my age is some of the best movies ever. I mean, Blazing Boards, Beyond Blazing Boards. So that's another goal of mine is to help Josh and be able to kind of remaster some of his classics, and at least get them on a streaming platform so we can watch them, in your house.
What was great about him, he did not discriminate either. Like, everyone was in his movies, I mean, like, I remember meeting Australian surfers and being like, naming like random people like John Shortis or Zappa Wybrow, and everyone's like, who, and you're just like, I know because of Chris Bystrom movies, he didn't discriminate what surfers were in them, and I loved it. It was very egalitarian and very much like felt like it was a best of surfing in those years. Like, it encompassed everyone. Which I think is kind of missing in a lot of surf movies today.
I agree. He was a great storyteller and a great filmmaker, good surfer, and he provided a huge contribution for our sport. And his films are legendary, and everyone should be able to watch those as well.
Now, do you ever talk to like Scott Dietrich at all? Because I know Rolling Thunder was the last surf movie he made, and I know apparently he was quite upset after that movie. He didn't make another surf film after that, and it kind of left a bad taste in his mouth. Apparently, like, is he still around?
Yeah.
And what's do you still communicate with him?
Yeah, Scott is still around. I've talked to him actually a couple years ago because he was in the credits of Searching for Tom Curren. So I reach out to all. I mean, I know the camera operators is me, Sonny, Tommy DeSoto, and Larry. But I thought he provided some footage. So I spoke to him a couple years ago. And he's doing well. He's still in California. He does not shoot surfing, but he manages a lot of stock footage archives. I mean, his archives are deep. That's another thing I was trying to, because I actually shot some footage. I'm like, what are you doing with all that footage? Where's that Dan Kiloha? I even got footage of Christian and Nate when they were like super young, Bruce and Andy, and so he's doing good. He's not doing any surf movies, but he's got some deep archives that I would like to get access to be able to bring some of that footage out into some of the new projects we want to create. He made go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say he's got Curren at the ranch, in mid '80s at his competitive peak almost. But yeah, like it's a shame because I thought his movies were amazing too, and again, another great narrator too. Follow the Suns, Tales of the Seven Seas, Amazing Surf Stories. All these movies were pretty phenomenal too. That I think are really difficult to get a hold of now.
I agree. He's I think between Chris and Scott and the storytelling, like you said, the self narration, kind of like that's a tribute to really Bruce Brown, right? I mean, he started that narration thing, and Warren Miller with the ski movies, Snowboard was really, really into that. And you're right, no one really does that anymore. You're asking, well, why? I mean, I couldn't imagine myself speaking over the footage. But I think it is cool with the right person. And who knows? Maybe we've got to bring some of that back, Tyler.
Yeah, well, I do some voiceover work, and I got a silky smooth baritone.
You got a radio voice.
I got a radio voice, a podcast voice. I want to also dive into your relationship with your brother, because it feels like you guys have. What's the age difference between you two both?
So I'm the older brother. I have Craig's 4 years younger than me. I have a middle sister, Laura. Well, Craig was, my younger brother. Love him more than anything. He's very creative mind. And I think back to these search trips. Like I was probably 20. How old was I? 23? No, 24. Yeah, I was in my mid 20s, and my brother, maybe even younger. He was always like kind of, probably looked up to me as the older brother on these search trips. My brother is. My brother helped me create that Fiberglass and Megapixels movie, which you're talking about. And I had a vision of telling a story, about photography and stuff, and honoring a lot of my photographer friends, and trying to explain to people that always goes, so how do you get those pictures in the water? It's like, okay, we got to tell you, it's a process. So his mind, though, he edited that film. He's a great writer. He's got a very good visual mind, and he helped edit that film. I mean, we were in the 2010 X Dance Film Festival, and we were obviously screening there, and there was some great movies. I believe it was there was Rob Machado and Taylor Still's The Drifter. There was a Red Bull Patagonia film. All these like really big, film projects up there. And there was at the awards that night, and they're like, "Oh, best editing, Fiberglass and Megapixels." I'm like, "Wow, Craig." Good, I was like, wasn't me. I was like, Craig edited that movie. I mean, I helped obviously assist and edit, but yeah, he's a huge part of my life. We both still live in our hometown of Hawaii Kai. He's got a couple of young kids, my niece and nephew, who are adorable, and we still live in Hawaii, and we're still passionate about life. And we actually both been talking a lot about creating more programming, more positive programming. Whether it's historical, surf-related, just kind of creating more uplifting, positive programming. And that's something I hope we can both do more of in the future. But yeah, he was my little brother. I taught him everything he knows. No, I'm just kidding.
Fiberglass and Megapixels was an incredible film. Also, like, got picked for the New York Surf Film Festival. I believe it won Best Cinematography, actually, if I do remember. Whoever put that festival on, the first 3 years did a great job. Yeah, that's me, by the way. That's how we met.
You did a wonderful job.
But I mean, I remember that movie, and it was really cool because it turned the lens on to the people who normally you're shooting it, and it was something that had not been done before. And like you said, it told Sonny's story, told a lot of other photographers' stories, who are kind of unsung heroes in the surf world. They don't, I feel like, get paid that well. They don't get the credit that they deserve. They don't, and a lot of them are putting themselves, not only they're putting themselves in danger, much more harm sometimes than even the surfers. And on top of that, they are sacrificing surf time for this work. It's kind of impressive. Like, how did that movie come about? Like, what made you want to make that film?
Well, I think it was 2007 when me and my brother first started making that film. And like I was saying, I always wanted to be able to tell a story of what it was like to be the water guy. Because, like you said, you're kind of behind the scenes photographer. And I had a great career. I'd done a lot of really cool things. But I mean, Larry Haynes, Scott Aikner, Brian Billman, Brent Billman, Ted Grambeau. Legends.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate because these are all my friends. So I just, it was a very organic film. Me and my brother go out to North Shore, just me and him. Hey, Brian Billman, that is. We want to get an interview with you. Oh, Hoffman, no problem. Anytime. Okay. Well, we set up in the backyard. And Brian is obviously a legend photographer, a great communicator, and the guy you always want to be posted up next to on the beach because he was a great storyteller. And so we just started doing these interviews, not really knowing exactly how it was going to come out, to be honest with you. It wasn't like we had pre-production, we're going to do this and that. We just thought, let's interview our friends, the photographers. Let's talk to our surfers, and let's put something together. So we were interviewing Brian one day in his backyard. Next thing he goes, hey, you want to talk to Darren Crawford? Like, I'd never even met Darren Crawford. I'm like, yeah, what's up, Darren? Well, Darren's another legendary cinematographer. Yeah. And next thing you know, there's Dave Nelson, Nelly. Like, guys I didn't actually know. We just kind of organically started interviewing people. And obviously we interviewed Mick Fanning and, Mark Healy and Freddie P. and Reef and just... So we just kind of went out to just start talking to people and having them tell their story, I should say, whether it was surfing, photography. And then we were blessed because, Ted Grambeau enabled us to use pretty much all of his iconic images he's ever created. Amazing. Some of those shots in that film, this shot, the cover shot of Searching for Tom Curren is in there as a still. That backside snap of Johnny Boy Gomes at Pipe. And we were blessed because, we didn't have any budget. This was just me and my brother making a movie. So it's not like so much, how much money am I going to make? Same thing. Money never came up. It was more like, hey, we're going to tell a story. We were blessed with these relationships with our friends. They enabled us to give us their stills and really help us tell the story. I would believe Scott Aikner's description of that sequence that he got of Jamie O'Brien at Off the Wall. I was on the beach and, there's like 20 camera guys in the water, right? And everyone's trying to jockey for a position. And Scott Aikner, as we know, one of the most legendary wide-angle still shooters, not wide angle, but I should say created new angles by getting so close to the action. Like, oh my gosh. But his description of what it was like to capture that image, I felt was very important because I've never heard that. I knew what it took, but I've never seen that put in a film. So, anyone could watch it. And my goal was me and my brother wanted to make a surf movie that had a story, had a beginning, middle, and end. So someone, whether new surfing or maybe someone in Idaho that never knew surfing could watch this film and go, wow, that's really interesting what they do. A lot of the younger generation was, there's too much talking, more surfing. I'm like, yeah, I like surf porn too, but I like sometimes a story. So that's what we set out to do, and we're grateful we accomplished that. We won multiple awards. We were blessed to be in New York City and screen it up at your festival. That was, I went to Byron Bay. We did Hawaii. We did some great screenings. For me, the New York one was one of the cooler ones ever. And I'm looking forward to bring Searching for Tom Curren up into the New York zone, brother. And let's do something really cool with that.
So let's all bring it back to like nalu.tv now is your website where everyone can access Searching for Tom Curren. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's nalu.tv. It's a platform we basically created for this film, for Fiberglass, and more films because, there's the YouTube and there's iTunes and all these other opportunities, but we really wanted to create our own platform that we can turn into in the future, the home of like some really classic films that maybe you can't watch anywhere else. So nalu.tv is where you can stream Searching for Tom Curren and Fiberglass and Megapixels. We also have, for the people that still like tangible products like yourself and me, we have the Blu-rays and DVDs. And my ultimate goal is to have Chris's films up there, Blazing Boards, and what other films that we can get the licensing rights or just the blessings from to remaster some of our iconic movies and have a home for them. So that's what Nalu TV is about.
Can I get a poster? There are posters of Searching for Tom Curren on there?
Pardon me, you broke up one more time.
Can I get a poster of Searching for Tom Curren? Is there a poster of that?
Yes, you can, brother. There is a 11 by 17 poster we have as well. And going on to the poster real quickly. So the original cover backs from Searching for Tom Curren was really well done, right? It was like Ted Grambeau shot of backdoor, some super cool, like funky kind of font style, right? Some interesting coloring. Now, we actually redid that whole poster. that because I saw the original artwork, but I'm like, okay, I like that artwork, but I think we got to modernize it or just bring it into this current day.
Yeah.
So we were very blessed. We had a gentleman by the name of Sean, who Bob Hurley actually turned me on to him. Bob is a longtime friend. And I was trying to find a graphic artist to help me redo this cover box, but not like change it. You know what I mean? Not make it different. So Sean and his talent. I mean, Sean's works with John's company and Hurley. I mean, he's this really talented graphic artist surfer who's based in Israel. So he was able to take the original image, recreate the whole font. Like he recreated the whole font, and he so. If you look at the two, they're very similar, but there's some distinct differences in them. So Sean, our graphic artist, helped recreate this poster cover box, which we also, a lot of people are like, who wants a surf poster? Now, speaking of surf posters, Chris Bystrom's surf posters were iconic.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there was way more like creative artwork kind of in with the John Severson, just super cool. So the search for Tom Curren poster, we made an 11 by 17 old school movie poster and redid the cover box. And I feel like I believe Sonny would be proud of what we did of bringing his film back to life, so to speak. We didn't change anything. I was never, if I could not clear all the music, I wouldn't have redone the film. I would never change Sonny's artistic vision of that film. So that film is as is.
Amazing.
We just tried to bring it to the current day standards of high definition and bring that cover box so it just pops a little more, and I think we accomplished that.
So for all our listeners, go to nalu.tv. You can get yourself the digital or the box set or a poster, and also see fiberglass and megapixels. And hopefully we will see more releases of the search footage over time. Which is totally worth it. I mean, it's the other films are pretty incredible, and the music is also incredible. So keep an eye out for that. And anything else, Derek? Where can they find you? What can they do? On Instagram is Nalu on Instagram as well, I guess. So
yeah, thank you, Tyler. Well, first off, Tyler, I want to thank you for this great podcast you do. You do a huge service for all the surfers around the world. We obviously want to watch the visuals, but the talking and the stories are very important. So thank you for this opportunity just to share my story. And as far as you mentioned nalu.tv, we also have our Instagram, Nalu Films. I'm based in Hawaii. You can go to nalu.tv. We have a contact. You can send me an email if anyone needs to talk. Just real quickly on the screenings, we just screened at Santa Barbara just last weekend, Tom's hometown. So the goal was to screen in Sonny's hometown, Tom's hometown, and the next screening was in Rip Curl. Will be at Bells Beach, Rip Curl's hometown. So we're also open to screen this movie around the world. I'd love to be able to take it all over. So if anyone is interested in their town or they have a cool theater, they think they can help get this film here, we want to talk to you, because the goal is to make this film, obviously it's accessible on streaming platforms, but the Surf Cinema Live venues are the goal. So I hope to see you soon, Tyler, and everyone else around the world. Hopefully we can bring this movie to your hometown.
And one last question, one extra. What was your favorite search trip?
Wow, good. Well, my favorite search trip, you said?
Yeah. Do you have one?
I would say I do actually. My favorite search trip, I mean, mental-wise for sure is in my top, but I would say the Mozambique trip was my favorite surf trip, because we left Durban on a big swell on a little 50-foot tri-catamaran, sailing up the coast towards Mozambique, not knowing where we're going. 6 days later, still no surf. We all wanted to kind of pull the plug. And then we couldn't, because we couldn't get out of there. And next thing you know, we scored Mozambique. So for me, that was my highlight of all the trips. It was probably the most painful too. I was actually sick. I never get seasick. I just was talking to Shane Beshin about it, and he's like, "Yeah, Hoffmann, how was that trip?" I'm like, "Yeah, Beshin." So I would say I would say that Mozambique trip was my highlight. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, listeners, go check it out, and hopefully we will, see more of this footage on down the line. And for everyone listening, thank you, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Swell Season Surf on Instagram, and of course all your streaming channels. You can find us. Leave us a comment. Leave us a review. That would be nice, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Things I would show you, like life you showed me, in spirit, not body. But life is like a jigsaw puzzle. You try to build it only to realize you're just a piece. And if you find a piece that fits